Welcome back everyone. So in the last video we solved short by, and in this video we are going to solve join two arrays by ID. So let's dive in. Okay, so we are given two arrays ARR1 and ARR2. Return a new array, joined array. All the objects in each of these two input array will contain an ID field that has an integer value. Now joined array is an array formed by merging array1 and array2 based on their ID key. Now the length of the joined array should be the length of the unique values of the IDs. The returned array should be sorted in ascending order based on the ID key. Now if a given ID exists in one array but not the other, the single object with that ID should be included in the result array without modification. Now if two objects shares an ID, their property should be merged into a single object. If a key only exists in one object, that single key value pair should be included in the object. And if a key is included in both the object, the value in the object from array 2 should override the value from array 1. So let's see an example. So in the array 1, we have two objects with ID 1 and ID 2, and in the array 2, we have one object with ID 3. So in the final output, we have three objects with ID 1, 2 and 3. So these are simply merged. In the example 2, in array 1, we have two objects with ID 1 and 2, and in array 2, we have two objects with ID 2 and 3. So in both the arrays, we have object with ID 2. So in the final output, we have object with ID 1, 2 and 3. So the object with ID 2 are merged together, and the fields in the array 2 with ID 2 are merged with object in the array 1 with ID 2. So the object 2, ID is 2, the value of x is 3 in the first object and x is 10. So this will override this x value. So x will be 10, y is 6, y is 20. So y will be 20 here. Let's see example 3. In the example 3, the first one array has one object with ID 1 and second array has also one object with ID 1. So these two objects will be merged together. So ID will be 1. So the key B will be overridden by key B in array 2. So the key B will contain C84 and not B94. Similarly, the key V will be overridden by V1 and 3. Y will be as it is since there is no Y key in the array 2. Okay. So now let's solve this problem. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to keep the unique IDs, and if the two objects share the same ID, we have to merge those properties and we have to return the values in sorted by ID. So it is given here that the returned array should be sorted in ascending order based on the ID key. So what we will do is first we will merge these two arrays. Okay, so what we'll do is first we'll merge. So we can say like merged array, and we can merge using spread operator, or we can use the concat method. Okay, so this is merged array. Now this merged array will contain the duplicates also. So for example, in example 2, we have these two objects with ID 1 and 2, and in array 2, we have two objects with ID 2 and 3. Now when we merge these two arrays into a single, so it will contain four objects. This will contain these two objects and these two objects. Now these four objects are inside merged array. Now what we have to do is we have to combine those objects which have the same ID. So we'll create filtered, let's say array which will be initially empty. Now this object will contain key value pair, that is ID, and against this ID we will have an object. So let's say this will come. So this will contain ID as 1, here 1, and then object itself. Then come this value. So ID will be 2. So it will be something like 1 and then object. Then comes the 2 and then object. Now again it will come ID 2, but the ID 2 already exists. So what we will do is we will override the properties of this object with this object. Okay. Now will come the ID 3 and we'll assign the object. So what we have to do is also one more thing. As it is said, we have to return the objects in sorted by ID in ascending order. And since object contain key as numbers, this filtered array will return those values in sorted order only. So let's see how. So what we will do is, for each value in the merged array, so for each value, what we will do is we will get, let's say, object, and now we will check in the filtered array. If this filtered array contains object.id is not equal to undefined, or let's say if it is undefined, which means we have not set this key inside the filtered array, then what we will do is we will set object.id equal to this object. Else, which means that at this particular id there is already an object associated with it, then what we will do is we will override the properties at this id with, so first the old object, first we will spread old object, and now we will spread the new object. So what it will do is the properties in this is overridden by properties in the current object. Okay, and finally we have to return the values in that filtered array and should be sorted by id. So what we'll do is we will return object dot values of filtered array. So let's see the result of this. Okay, so it should be 3 dots. Our local test case has been passed. Now we will submit this, and our solution got accepted. So now let me explain you once again. So first what we did is we merged these two arrays. So let's see example 2. In this case the merged array will contain, so merged array will contain these two entries and these two entries. Okay, now one by one we'll traverse through these items in this merged array. So first this will come, so the id is 1, and in the filtered array we'll check if there is an object associated with this id. So it will be, if it is undefined, then we will associate the object for this id. Now for the second, id is 2, so again we will see that it is equal to undefined, and in that case for the id2 we will associate this object. So the filtered array will look like this. So the filtered array or object will look like this. For the object with an id of 1, we'll assign this object, and for an object with an id of 2, we'll assign this object. Now comes the third object. So this object has the same id. So what we will do is it will go in the else case. So we will spread the old object. So we'll spread this old object, and then we will spread the current object, that is this object. So we will spread this object, okay, inside this. Now this id is 2, so this will be removed. Okay, then x is 10, this x will be removed, then y is 20, and this y will be removed. So it will be like this: id is 2, x is 10, and y is 20. Now comes the object with an id of 3. So this object will be assigned against key value 3. Now finally, after iterating over all the objects in the merged array, we will return the values in the filtered array. Now this object is sorted based on these keys. So when we return the values inside this object, they will be sorted by id. So what we will do is we only return object.values in the filtered array. That's it.